A Ghost Story is next. And this is another one that I think a lot of people are gonna be mixed about, but I think it's a pretty good movie. So going into it, I thought it was a horror movie. It's not a horror movie at all. I think I might have gotten this movie confused with a trailer for another one that like had someone in the ghost sheet stereotype thing, and then it like kind of does a zoom in, and the mom or whoever is like, "Oh sweetie, take that off," and then they like rip it off and it's like nothing under, and they scream. This movie's gonna be called Pretentious. The movie's gonna be controversial because of the way it tells its story. It's definitely not for everyone. If you come away hating this movie, I can understand why, but I personally really liked it. The camera doesn't move around much at all, very deliberately, and it kind of makes you focus on any small movement that you do see and any small change that does happen. One thing that I really have to mention, one of the more, I'm sure, more controversial approaches that this movie makes, not to spoil anything, but, and I don't want to frame this because out of context, it might turn some people off. Even in context, I know it will. I don't even know how long, maybe 5 minutes, maybe up to 7, of a character literally just eating a whole pie. Theoretically, there's nothing wrong with skipping that scene if you don't want to watch it. There's definitely more importance to having it be that long and having her eat the whole pie than if it just cut. And that's not the only thing this movie does that I think won't appeal to a lot of people and is going to be criticized by a lot of people. But I also don't see it as a bad thing, really. I think that a lot of it's going to be brushed aside as pretentious because people aren't going to be willing to actually give it a chance for the more out there things it does. Specifically as well, there's a part in the middle of the movie where a new character kind of comes in and explains a lot of the themes that are happening. And I can kind of justify this for 2 reasons. One being that there's a lot more going on than just what this character says. There's a lot more that you can analyze. That this is more of just a starting point for people who are trying to analyze it, like this gives you more of a push in the right direction. A lot of people are going to say that that's not needed. Mainly, I would agree, but I also have to come in to make the point that this movie stars a fucking Baldwin, or not a Baldwin, an Affleckman. Literally, that's the only thing, that is the only thing that would make this movie appeal to a mainstream audience at all. If they didn't have that, no fucking mainstream audience member would have any appeal to see this movie, get anything out of this movie. Because a lot of mainstream audience members are not willing to dissect a movie, are not willing to put in the time and effort. And to kind of have that scene of someone explaining part of the themes of this movie, I think is justifiable at the very least. So yeah, another thing I really have to credit for is how quiet and atmospheric this movie is, because it really pulls off what it does, the tone that it's trying to go for, exceptionally well. And it almost feels like it's intended to watch with someone and discuss what's going on and what you think is going to happen and what has happened, because it's so quiet. You wouldn't be missing much at all by talking to someone through it about it. Considering that I don't think this movie is showing anywhere, I would recommend seeing this with a friend who likes movies, if you can, just discussing it while you watch it and not ruining anyone else's experience by seeing it with a large group of people who don't want to hear you talk, but just kind of make this a more personal thing. Because I watched this with my mom, not even knowing what kind of movie it was, and she didn't like the pie scene. That was her big complaint, but that's kind of early on in the movie. After that, she ended up really liking it, and we talked a lot through the movie about what was happening and what we thought was going to happen, and it was a really enjoyable experience. Maybe people can replicate that and get something more out of it than they would have if they just watched it by themselves or in a crowd of people. Maybe this is a movie that more personally speaks to me than it will other people, so I guess I can see that, kind of like Japanese Girls Never Die, where maybe this one is biasing me a little bit. if you don't like slow, artsy movies, if anything that I've said about it, it's like, I wouldn't enjoy that. You won't enjoy it. I wouldn't recommend it under those circumstances, but if you can sit down and appreciate something like that, then yeah, of course I would recommend this. This is something that I feel like you'd get a lot out of.